welcome back to the channel, where today I am going to be talking about my favourite attractions in Brighton. So this video is the first of two videos based on Brighton. So today's video we're going to be talking all about the attractions that I have done in Brighton, as there is obviously so much to do, and even though I've been going there for so many years, since I was really little, there's still loads and loads of attractions I haven't done yet. So this video is just purely based on all the attractions I have done, and then there will be another video coming out about the attractions that I really want to visit, hopefully in 2021, on a trip to Brighton. So just as a bit of a backstory, like I just mentioned, I've been going to Brighton pretty much every year, maybe every other year, since I was really little. Obviously living in Kingston, which is just on the outskirts of London, Brighton is pretty much the closest seaside resort I have. So it's not even going for a holiday, we just go for a day out if we want to go by the sea, and it's just a very special place to me. It's very beautiful and there's lots of history, but also lots of adventures there, which is perfect for a channel called Lou's Adventures. But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. The first attraction I of course have to talk about is the magnificent Brighton Palace Pier, which is so much more than just your standard pier that you may find elsewhere. But also, just a little fun fact, for those of you who have been to Brighton will probably know this, but if you haven't, just a fun little fact. This wasn't Brighton's original pier. There was another pier that sadly burnt down, and you can still kind of see the structure in the water a bit further over, but it is slowly getting eroded away by obviously the sea. But you can still kind of make out the dome, which would have been like the central building with all the arcades. And then when that burnt down, they built Palace Pier, which is incredible. It's quite a long pier and there's a lot of stuff on there to do. So they've got two arcades which are always great fun to go on, like the 2p machines, or playing games to win tickets, and then you exchange those tickets for prizes. And then for the thrill seekers like me, you of course have the fun fair at the end of the pier. I am going to talk about that, but I'm going to break it down ride by ride based on what I normally go on when I go to Brighton. Obviously they do the old school token system, but they have also in recent years introduced a wristband, which is even better, as you get unlimited rides on the pier, and that is perfect for someone like me or for some other enthusiasts who like to go and visit. And I think it was roughly about £20 for a whole day for unlimited rides, which is great value. But let's get straight into the attractions that I adore on the pier. So surprisingly, my favourite ride on Brighton Pier is not one of the two coasters, it is this thing, and that is the Booster. I love it. I used to be really terrified of flat rides, and I went one summer with a friend and I was like, right, I need to try and do this, get over my fear, because I have a fear of deep water, and obviously this is on literally right on the end of the pier at the corner. Obviously it flips you out over the sea, so someone with a huge phobia of deep water, this is their worst nightmare, or you would think. So we got on it, and obviously the way they load it is there's 4 on one gondola and then 4 on the other. So they load that 4 and then you sit at the top while they unload and load the other gondola. And we were just sat at the top and I was like, no, I can't do this, I'm gonna hate it. And then I loved it. It's a really weird feeling, especially when you're flipping out and over the sea and you're upside down, and it's quite disorientating, but it's not a sickly disorientating. It's really fun. It's not rough. It's quite intense but not overly intense, so it's enjoyable, and it's just ridiculously fun. And one of my favourite bits about it now is when you are sitting at the top, especially at night, you're either staring over into just like the blackness of the sea, which is quite spooky and quite scary, or if you're facing the other side, which is personally my favourite side, you're just looking out to the lights of the city of Brighton, and it's amazing, it's beautiful. And I kind of wish I had the guts to kind of get a camera out when I'm sat at the top just to take a picture of that, but no way, because knowing my luck, I would drop the phone and I wouldn't trust it anyway. Plus safety, if I did drop it, it could hurt someone, especially from like the height you're sat at. But I just adore it, and I can't wait to go back to Brighton Pier and have a ride sesh on Booster, because it's needed. Another ride I absolutely love on the pier is, of course, the Wild River log flume. You cannot go wrong with a log flume, and especially in Brighton when it's really, really sunny and really, really hot, as it can get really hot there. But obviously typical British weather, most of the time it's actually quite cold. This is the perfect solution. You don't get soaked, you just get a nice sprinkling, enough to cool you down. If you don't want to go and like swim in the sea or paddle in the sea, this is like the perfect alternative, especially for those who, like me, hate deep water. I mean, I can paddle in the sea, like, and by paddle I literally mean put my feet in the water, and that's about it. I won't go too far out. So this is just really nice, and it's also a bit of fun as well. Like, for those of you who personally know me, I adore stuff like Tiger Rock, Valhalla when it was open, the Raging River ride, I think that's what it's called at Portland's Park. I just love log flumes in general, and this is great fun and a brilliant way to kind of break up your time on the pier, as a lot of the rides are obviously funfair style, so they can be quite intense, quite long cycles. So this is a perfect break to just go and do something thrilling, but that's also a little bit more relaxing. Next up is one of the two coasters on the pier, and this is Turbo, which is definitely the most thrilling of the two, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the most enjoyable of the two. So for me, the first time I rode this, it was okay. I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything ridiculously special. Obviously it's got the loop, which is quite intense, especially towards the back of the train, but the way the seats are is so uncomfortable and it is jolty. So for me, I find it a little bit too rough to be enjoyable, but I still go on it at least once when I visit, because it is a good coaster. I just wish it wasn't so jolty and so rough. Like, it may be different for other people, and it could be based on the fact that while I'm tall, I'm not ridiculously tall, so when you go through some of the corners, my ears kind of bash a little bit on the over the head restraints, which may obviously cause discomfort and maybe the reason why sometimes I don't enjoy it that much. Or if you get the chance to kind of adjust the way you're sitting in the seat, that definitely affects your ride, because then I went on it again and I kind of adjusted the way I was sitting and it wasn't as bad as before. And so it's a bit of a hit and miss coaster, but it's definitely very fun and definitely one not to miss out on, especially if you've not visited before. The next attraction to talk about is the other coaster on the pier, and the one I enjoy much more than Turbo, and that is Crazy Mouse, which is your standard spinning wild mouse kind of coaster that you normally find at fun fairs or seaside resorts. But they're really popular and I can definitely see why. I've done quite a few of them now, and Ice Mountain is 100% the best one I've done, but I rate this one a lot higher than a lot of other ones I've done, because there's that added element of fear with the tight corners at the top of the layout, especially since this is also at the end of the pier. So on those corners it feels like you're literally going to be like thrown off the pier into the sea, which is terrifying but quite an adrenaline rush at the same time. And the spinning on this, if you sit in the kind of correct positions where you put more weight on one side of the car, you can get a really good spin on this, and it is so much fun, and I love it so much, and I can't wait to go back more to go on this coaster than I am to go on Turbo. Well, it's been a while because of everything that's gone on, and I'm looking forward to going on Turbo again and seeing if it rides any different than how I remember it. This is definitely the coaster I will be spending the majority of the time on out of the two coasters. Next up is another favourite attraction of mine on the pier, and that is Galaxia. Not Galactica, Galaxia. The names are really similar and I can understand why someone might get confused, but no, this is Galaxia, and it isn't even a coaster, it is their techno frog / techno jump ride on the pier. And out of the ones I've done, I really like the one at Fantasy Island, but this is just my favourite, mainly because of the music that's blaring out around, the way they interact with you as a guest, and the operator is really good. Like, they'll shout out and say, oh, scream if you want to go faster, and then they speed the ride up, and then they hold you obviously at the top, and then you slowly bounce back down at the end of the ride, and it's just great. I love it, and it's so much fun. But when I was younger, I was again terrified of this. It was before I kind of got into the phase where I knew I loved theme parks and I loved roller coasters and rides, so I was still quite nervous and cautious about them, and it took so much persuasion for me to get on this ride. And it was actually my dad who was like, just go on it, and then if you don't like it, you never have to do it again. And I went on, and then I think I went round about 10 times in the day we spent there. I just loved it so much. I just kept going round and round and round, and it was so good, and I miss it again. And I think the paintwork and the bright colours is amazing, especially if you get one of the late nights on the pier and you can see all the rides with their lights on and their LEDs. It's so pretty, and Galaxia just really captures your attention even more in the dark. Next up is Air Race, which is again in the name. It's an air race ride, which is the planes, and you don't have to spin them yourself like on rides like Skyforce. They kind of manually swing a bit and then you go round a few times. And again, it was a ride I was always very cautious of. I think I did the one at Drayton, or I might have sat off of it, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I did it, but again, I prefer this one. It's a bit more intense, and again, when you flip out you don't realise that the arm actually extends quite far, so when you're flipping upside down, 9 times out of 10 you're again kind of hanging out over the sea, which again is a mixture of excitement and fear. And the ride cycle doesn't go on too long. I think you go round once or twice that way, then they send you the other way, then they send you back that way, and then it's over. But it's a good 1.5 to 2 minute ride cycle, which is perfect for this kind of ride. Is if it went on a little bit longer, it may be a bit too much and you may kind of come off feeling a little bit sickly, but luckily I've never had a problem with it. And again, it's a ride I've fallen in love with really quickly, and I cannot wait to go back and get back on it. Next up, we have a Fun Fair classic, which is the Twister or the Sizzler or whatever you want to call them. And again, this is one of the best ones I've done. I think the best Twister I've done is Pharaoh's Fury at Adventure Island, because the cycle is the perfect length, but what also makes it is the fact that the whole thing is themed so well to an Egyptian pharaoh, and it's just really eye-catching, especially in the sun. but for your bog standard little to no theming twister, this is probably the best one I've done. It does go on for quite some time, so again, if you're not that good with spinny rides, then you may come off feeling a little bit nauseous or a little bit sickly, but luckily for me, this doesn't cross that boundary. I think it has once or twice, but that's purely because we kept going round on it, and after about 3 or 4 cycles of that in a row, no way, it killed me off for the rest of the night and I couldn't do anything else. But to go on it once and then go and do everything else and then come back to it after a break, fine, but do not lap it 4 times in a row, because it's like the consequences are dire. Because it's quick and it does spin quite a lot, and then obviously when you're slowing down, it takes so long to slow down. You're still going at some kind of speed for quite a while, so it's so much fun, but definitely one to do once or twice, but not on straight back on again. Take a break. The penultimate Brighton Pier attraction we're going to talk about is one that surprises even myself that I enjoy this, and that is the Waltzer. So at your bog standard funfair circuits, I cannot cope with the Waltzers, mainly because they spin enough as it is, and the last thing I need is when the operator comes and pushes your car and spins you even more. I literally come off of it as pale as a ghost, feeling so sick, and I can't do anything else for the rest of the day. I literally just want to go home and sleep. However, the one on Brighton Pier is so different. It is in its own category for waltzers because it's all manual. The operator stays in his booth and he doesn't push you even faster than you're already going, and the actual carriages or bowls or whatever you want to call them on a waltzer, they don't consistently spin when you're on there, so it breaks it up quite a bit. So you get a really good spin for some of it, and then it kind of slows down and you just sway a bit and then it will spin it again. So it's not too intense and it's not too full on with the spinning to the point where I literally feel like I'm gonna vom when I get off the ride. So I still managed to find this really enjoyable, and I will definitely make sure I go on it once or twice when I return to the pier, hopefully at some point in 2021. Last but not least for the Brighton Pier section of this video is the Horror Hotel. I remember very distinctly when I was really young, and I'm talking I must have been about 6 or 7, my mum took me on this, and at that point I was absolutely petrified of all things scary, as you normally are as a kid, and I cried on this and I just never wanted to go on it again. Then I got to the age where I thought, you know what, let's go on it again and see how I feel, and now I absolutely love it. I realised that it is typical fairground, seaside, ghost train kind of vibes. It's not too scary. There are some bits that do make me jump a bit, but it's nothing scary compared to the scare mazes I put myself through. Like, imagine if I found something like this scarier than the likes of Subspecies. Like, that's just not right. This is perfect and it's great fun, and again, it's a nice gentle ride to break up your day when you are on the pier or in Brighton. As with all the intense rides like I mentioned for Wild River, it's nice to just go on here, sit back, relax, and try not to get too scared. So the next attraction I absolutely love to do when I visit Brighton is the Brighton Sealife Aquarium. This is obviously now owned by Merlin, so if you have a Merlin pass it is free to enter, but I don't think tickets are too expensive if you don't have one. I'm not too sure of the price, so I will double check and put a link down below to their online store. I know everyone says that once you've been to one Sealife, you've kind of been to them all and you've seen them all, but they actually all have a lot of differences, and it's nice to go and visit each one so you can kind of see those differences for yourself. And this is a very, very, very special Sealife, because this is actually the world's oldest aquarium, and it opened in 1872, so it's been around for a long, long time, and it's in a really big, old, impressive building, and it is huge, like as you can see in the picture just behind me. Obviously you have the same kind of layout to most Sealife, so you will always end with the tunnel where the sharks and stingrays can go above you, but with the fact that this is the world's oldest aquarium, it is definitely worth a visit, even if you feel like because you've done one Sealife you don't really want to spend much time doing any of the others. I would strongly recommend you make an exception for this wonderful, wonderful place. Next up is probably my favourite thing to do in Brighton aside from the pier, and that is the Brighton tour bus. This is the city sightseeing open top double-decker tour bus around Brighton, and it normally lasts about an hour to an hour and a half, and it is one of the best things to do. Obviously it only runs during the summer months, so it's definitely worth going down in the summer for your trip, so you can incorporate this into your itinerary of what you're going to do on your visit to Brighton. It takes you around so many beautiful sites. It takes you all the way down to Brighton Marina, which is at the other end of the beach. It takes you from the pier all round the lanes and to a church which has an incredible story that has always stuck in my mind. It takes you up towards Brighton railway station, which again has stories linked to that as well, and it takes you up along by the race course, along the cliffs, and it is just a wonderful thing to do to break up your day, because again, if the pier is open until late and you don't want to spend your whole day there, you can go on, do a few rides, book a seat on one of these beautiful buses, and take an hour out of your day to just sit back and do the round trip instead of hopping on and hopping off. Obviously at some point if you want to hop on and hop off you can, especially for me, I would probably want to hop off at the Royal Pavilion if I didn't want to walk to the pavilion, as it's quite an easy walk to get there. But if you wanted to go kind of the long way and see some of the sights along the way, this is the perfect way to do that. And another great thing with the tour bus ticket is it is valid for 24 hours, so even if you were there for a weekend and you bought the ticket quite late on in the afternoon, say you bought it at like 4 or 5 on a Saturday evening, you would be able to use it until 4 or 5 on the Sunday, so a perfect way to break up your morning as well if you wanted to go for another lap round on the bus. A must do for any visit to Brighton is definitely to go in one of the little seafront old penny arcades. These are great fun just to spend 10-20 minutes. You exchange your new pennies for old pennies, and you can try out loads of really old-fashioned games and old-fashioned things that would have been in those arcades. They've got a fortune teller, and it's really, really good fun. And again, it's a nice way to break up your day, especially if you're just taking a wander along the seafront. Maybe you've had lunch and you're just walking around a bit to let your food go down before you go back on the pier. That is the perfect opportunity to just pop in to one of the old penny arcades and have a little bit of fun. Next up is an attraction I've only done once, but I would love to go back in there just to have another wander around, and that is the Brighton Fishing Museum. It is again along the seafront. In fact, I think it's next door to one of the old penny arcades, and it's free to enter, and it just tells you a little bit of the history about fishing in the Brighton and Hove kind of area. There's boats, there's steering wheels, there's lots of different fishing nets, and lots of information on the types of fish you can find local to Brighton. And I remember there's a picture of me, I must have been about 12 or 13 when we went, and there's a picture of me standing on one of the boats, and I look so young and my hair looks ridiculous and I wasn't wearing makeup, so it was a glow up from then. And I would love to go back in there and maybe film a short vlog from there for you guys on the channel to see. So before I talk about the last attraction on my list, this was young me, so I apologise about how hideous that photo is, but it was the best one I could find related to my final attraction I'm going to talk about, and that is the Brighton Wheel. This has now been removed and it is no longer there, but when it was so good. It was totally separate from the pier, and I think it was about £10–12 per person to go on, and you got 3 or 4 rotations and got beautiful views, obviously, across the pier, across the city of Brighton and down towards Hove, and it was just really nice, especially on a clear sunny day, and it was a nice way to break up an afternoon. And because when it first opened and I went with my mum and dad, and we'd never seen it before, it was something new and something really fun to do as a family for the first time. And then I think I did it only once or twice after that, and then it got removed, which is really sad. It was amazing, but there is something slightly better now that will be coming up in the next video. So that was my video all about my favourite attractions that I have experienced at Brighton. Obviously many of them are still there and some of them are no longer there, such as the wheel, but if you do go, there's still lots for you to experience. Leading on from that, there's still a lot in Brighton for myself to experience, despite going there many times in my life. And that is what the next video about Brighton is going to be about. Is I have made a list of the top 5 attractions I am yet to experience there that I want to experience in 2021. So hopefully, fingers crossed, restrictions will die down and I will be able to go and cross off, if not all of them, at least some of my list. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm really sorry if I've rambled on at all. It's been nice to again sit down and have a chat with you about a place that is very close to my heart. Anyway, until next time, I have been Lou and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!